Hello, Tar Heel Nation. Welcome back to the podcast, the unofficial podcast of the national champions, the 2017 champions, anyway. That is, of course, our North Carolina Tar Heels. And I am back from a couple-week layoff. It's been good, been crazy busy. I wanted to do this last week, but then I was like too busy, plus the deadline for declaring for the NBA was coming up. So I was like, I'll wait until that is passed. We are past that. We'll get into that. We'll get into my probably not, but some final thoughts on this past season and kind of wrap up the championship season, championship game, all that kind of stuff. We'll get into who declared, recruiting stuff a little bit, who's left to commit to us, who has committed to us, that kind of stuff. And then we're going to finish off with looking back at the preseason predictions, my predictions, where I was wrong, right, any of that kind of stuff. And then also your predictions, anybody that submitted a final record, where we would finish, that kind of stuff. I will go through all of those so we can rehash, again, where we were right, where we were wrong, and where we just shouldn't be gambling on these things. As I don't think you ever should do on sports, because sports are just way too unpredictable. Before we get into that, I again want to just thank all of you for listening, supporting the podcast through this championship year. It's been a great one. It's been great to cover on the podcast. Couldn't do it without you guys. Some great numbers as far as downloads and listens on the podcast this season. March was huge for downloads, so thank you guys. Continue to support the podcast by just listening, by submitting in questions, comments, all that good stuff, and also by sharing it out to other Tar Heel friends and family, and yeah, just spreading the word so that we can unite Tar Heel Nation. That is my mission here on the podcast: unite Tar Heel Nation. So yeah, without that, let's kind of jump in. And by the way, before we do that, we are moving to monthly podcasts through the off season here. After this one, I will do one in May, June, July, August, September, and then October, probably with late night and stuff, is when we start getting into multiple podcasts per month. But so make sure you're subscribed wherever you're listening or watching this podcast: iTunes, Stitcher, any podcast app, as well as YouTube if you want to watch it. Or even just listen to the video, but subscribe so you don't miss the future off-season podcast before we get back into the 2017-18 season, as we go through the season as defending champs and try to defend that championship as best we can. But yeah, let's jump in a little bit. Kind of my final thoughts. A few weeks now past or away from the championship game. My kind of takeaway from the entire season, not even just that game, I rehashed that game in the last podcast with Megan. Go back and listen to that if you missed it. But kind of wrapping up the season as a whole, first off, when I think about especially the tournament run, is just how many guys, and even the whole season, how many guys stepped up throughout, even the tournament run. But again, like I said, all season. You think of, obviously, Justin Jackson, was named team MVP at the banquet. Joel Berry was the now full-time, or whatever they say, captain of the team. So he gets his jersey up in the rafters. He obviously led us from the point guard position. Kennedy Meeks, down low, led us, obviously, in some of those, in the Final Four games, should have probably been the Final Four most outstanding player. Even Isaiah Hicks, throughout the season with a lot of his games, without his leadership. Theo Pinson with some of the big plays, stat-wise, isn't really going to be remembered on this team, but for the big plays that he made. Think of Luke May hitting the shot against Kentucky. Who knows where we'd be without Luke May hitting that shot against Kentucky. So he steps up. I think even you could go on to like Nate Britt stepping up with some of his defense in some games. I'm not even saying the tournament here, but again, all season. Also his senior leadership, something that can't be replaced in a lot of ways. Well, I shouldn't say it can't be replaced. It can be replaced, but duplicated. And as we see from a lot of these schools that have one and dones, you need that senior leadership. You need, that backup point guard. We've seen that with, Joel getting hurt and stuff. You need that backup point guard. So kind of my takeaway from the season is just how many guys actually stepped up in different ways and in some big ways. Even Tony Bradley throughout the season. I don't know if he did at the end of the season, but the whole narrative throughout the season as far as Tony Bradley is, of course, how good he's going to be, but also that he led the nation in offensive rebounding efficiency, or his most offensive rebounds per 40 minutes. So again, there wasn't just one star on this team. Even if you look back at our 05, 09, it wasn't maybe one guy, but there was kind of a trio. In 09, Lawson and Hansborough and Wayne Ellington. And in 05, we had Sean May, McCants, if I can say that word on this podcast, Felton, Danny Green. They stood out. And this one, I don't know that you can really say. Obviously, you can, the MVP, Joel Berry, and even you could say the starters, but it doesn't compare to those teams. This team isn't going to go down as like an all-time great or even North Carolina all-time great compared to those teams, or a lot of other teams even maybe that didn't win the tournament. But this team got it together. They were everybody did their job and people stepped up at the right time. So that's what I will take away from this tournament anyway. As far as we go into what it means for Roy Williams, obviously it's his third, so he surpasses Dean Smith and how many championships he has. There's been a lot of talk about should the floor in the Dean Smith Center be renamed for Roy Williams. And then, of course, there's people on the other side saying, well, that's not even enough. This guy, Hubert Davis was saying, this is the greatest coach I've been around. And he was around Dean Smith. He was around a lot of good coaches in the NBA. So is naming the floor even enough for Roy Williams? His record as far as the tournament goes, he's, in the tournament, I think the championship game was his 100th game. He's won like 76 of them now, I think, out of those 100. So, is big time for Roy. People still doubting Roy or underestimating Roy. You can't say he's just a recruiter. You can't say he's just a coach. Now he's, he got these guys when we were under investigation. He got them to stay, to play together, and led them to a championship. So, I don't know what else to say about Roy. There's going to always be people, there's people on Coach K saying, how bad of a coach he is, or, whatever. There's always going to be those people. And I'm not even trying to stick up for Coach K in any means. Don't be emailing in about, I'm a homer for Coach K or something like that. That's not the case by any means. But again, Roy Williams is in that elite company, and there's no doubt about it. Obviously, he's a Hall of Famer. He has been now for a while, but got that third championship. He's, two championship games in a row. The right people come back, and we could go to 3 Final Fours in a row. But yeah, not enough can be said about him, and shouldn't be any more, fire Roy crap going on Twitter. But we know that just me saying that's not going to stop it. So we'll move on here a little bit to the NBA draft and who has declared. So it's been a couple weeks now. Justin Jackson already announced he's going. He is going to hire an agent. We know that he is not coming back next year. He will not be he will be a Tar Heel for sure, but he will not be in a Tar Heel or a Carolina uniform next season. Along with the seniors, Nate, Nate and Kennedy and Isaiah and am I missing anybody else that really get minutes? I know there's more guys, but Stillman is in there as well. But Justin Jackson will be gone. He's hiring an agent. And then as of really this morning, but technically last night was the deadline to declare for the draft, Theo, Joel Berry, and Tony Bradley, even although we knew Tony was going to by his statements, have all entered the NBA draft without hiring an agent. At this point, none of them are going to hire an agent. They're going to see kind of where they stand. And they have until May 24, which is 10 days after the combine, to withdraw their names and come back to school as long as they haven't hired an agent. Theo, I think, is a no-brainer. He's coming back. This is the smart thing to do, to enter the draft, it's exactly what Justin Jackson did last year. See what the NBA has to say about you, and then work on that next year, within the team game and improve your stock, hopefully. Tony Bradley is questionable to me. I don't know, because he's going to be drafted, if he goes, would be or will be drafted in the first round. If that's good enough for him, he's probably going to hear that. He'll hire an agent and he'll go. If he wants to move up to the lottery, which I think is possible, easily feasible, he can come back, be our go-to big man, and move into a weaker draft next year. If he has a good season, of course there's risks of that. We know injuries. He could not play as well, could be exposed, but that's not something we foresee. But again, it is a risk that you take. So he could easily move up to into the lottery. He could stay right where he is, and people would say, well, he should have gone a year earlier and got those extra millions of dollars. Or obviously, if he has a really bad game or really bad season, or does get hurt, knock on wood, obviously could drop into the second round or whatever. Then he'd be back for another year, whatever. But and then Joel Berry to me, if he goes, we congratulate the guy. There's nothing left for him to accomplish at the college level. And I don't know that there's a lot of leeway for him to improve. NBA guys don't like drafting seniors. They don't like, the older guys, which of course he would be then. And that 1 year can make a difference there if you stick. But he is shorter for the NBA anyway. He's obviously injured prone a little bit. He's had his ankles. So I guess coming back could kind of prove to the NBA, hey, my ankles are fine. They're not going to be I'm not always going to be twisting my ankle and having bad ankles or have problem with my ankles in the NBA. But again, I don't think his draft stock is going to move a lot. If he has a great season, he could move up a little bit. Again, it's a weaker draft, so he may move up a little bit. But he at this point, he kind of is what he is. People have seen what he can do. There's not a lot. He can shoot a little bit better, of course. He could score a little bit more, maybe rebound a little bit more, play defense, get a couple more steals a game, or whatever. But I don't think it's going to move his jock staff a lot because of his stature and then his age as well. So if he goes, you congratulate him. Thank you for everything that you did in a Carolina uniform, and we support him. If he comes back, obviously we're happy about it. It improves our Final Four chances a ton. So it kind of comes down to how much does he enjoy the college experience, how much is he worried about injury or any of that stuff, and then how quickly does he want to get to the league and start making money, or even if he weren't to get drafted, go to the NBDL or go to overseas and start making money is obviously the next step. So Theo's coming back. I would think Joel is, and then to me, Tony is. It's a personal thing, what he thinks. But that's kind of my things. As far as recruiting goes, real quick, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably know already that we have a commitment from Garrison Brooks. This is a 4-star big man, power forward that had previously committed to Mississippi State. His dad is actually an assistant on Mississippi State's team, or at least for their staff, and he decommitted. We were in on him early. From what I hear, his mom really wants him to come to North Carolina, and obviously his dad is on the staff for Mississippi State. But he decommitted there, and we got his commitment. Big for us, as we're not very deep in the post. So now we have 3 big guys coming in next year in the post, along with obviously Luke May, Tony Bradley, and then the big name out there yet that we have a chance for. And in the past month, I was hearing good things that we were going to get him, or really liked our chances of getting him, is Kevin Knox. Ever since the whole Michael Porter going to Missouri thing, he visited there, whatever. I don't think he's going there, but I haven't heard as much about us as far as him coming to us next year. So we'll see. He's supposed to announce at the first week of May. So I guess obviously in the May podcast, we will know whether Kevin Knox is coming to Chapel Hill or not. Would be huge. He could step right in for Justin Jackson in his spot there. More than likely be a one and done for us. But again, you should be able to produce. And especially if Joel comes back, if Tony came back, there's enough around him. He's not expected to do a ton. But yet I think he could put up really good numbers to where if he wants to be a one and done or, whatever, he could do that. And obviously, again, just up our chances of going back to the Final Four and contending to go back-to-back, which would be crazy to lose a championship game the way we did too last year, going to, winning it the way we did this year. And then, we got those guys back along with Kevin Knox, would obviously, help our stock, but just be crazy if we'd go to 3 championship games and then win back-to-back ones. I don't know, when's the last time that's been done? Obviously, Florida won back-to-back ones in the mid-2000s, 2006, 2007. I think Duke, did they go to the Final Four? I think they went to the Final Four. I don't know if they were in the championship game. I think they lost to UNLV, just got smoked in the Final Four in the semifinal to UNLV in 90, would it be 90? And then they won it in 91 and 92. So that's where you'd go back to last time somebody was in. Well, that's not even 3 national championships games. 3 national championship games in a row. You may have to go back to like the UCLA days with John Wooden. So that would be crazy. Obviously, we'd welcome that as Tar Heel fans, but we'll see what those guys do as far as returning. Again, they have till May 24 to withdraw from the draft and come back to Chapel Hill as long as they don't hire an agent. And then we're supposed to hear from Kevin Knox the first week of May of where he is going to be playing college ball. But we'll be all right. If the right guys come back, or really if all 3 of those come back, we'll be all right without him. It would be awesome to have him, though. All right. So the last part of this podcast, I do want to make this, feasible for you guys to listen to. But probably, well, we'll see. We'll see if this is what you've been waiting to listen to. But as far as predictions go, all right. So I went back to and listened to my podcast about predictions back in October. I think it was October 11 that I recorded it to get mine, and then I have everybody that submitted there. So first, my predictions. I said we would go 27-5 or 26-6. I gave myself a 1-game leeway there in the preseason. And we actually did lose 6 games in the regular season. So I was exactly spot on. I'm giving myself 100% there on the regular season, getting the record exactly right. 26-6 in the regular season. I said we were going to go 2-1 and losing the championship in the ACC tournament. Obviously, we lost in the semifinal to Duke, so we went 1-1. I also took away 1 possible game from us. As far as the overall record goes. And then I said we were going to go 3-1 in the NCAA tournament and lose in the Elite 8. Obviously, I'm wrong, and I'm okay being wrong there. We won 6 in a row, won the championship, brought it back to where it was supposed to be. So at the regular season, exactly right. Overall final record, I expected us to have 1 more loss than what we did. Let's see what that would be. 8. I predicted we have 8 losses. We ended up with 7. We were 33-7 on this season. And I predicted obviously we'd have 2 less wins than we did. No, 3 less. So I predicted us go 30-8. We went 33-7. But I'm okay being wrong there. I'll take the regular season being right on there with just the 1-game leeway. So that's my predictions from the preseason and how they turned out. Now jumping into yours, I'm going to give I'll shout out Twitter names of people that were right on, and anybody that had any part of what they submitted right, I will throw it out there. So first off, at Klutz_fan, that's KLUTTZ_fan. First of all, he said we'd go to the Sweet 16 with 8 losses. Obviously, I just said that's not right, but he did say we'd have 2 losses to Duke. He was right there, just not both in the regular season. At Tar Heel Brave 88 said 32-7 and go to the Final Four. So obviously we did go to the Final Four. We had 7 losses, just missed a couple of those wins. So at _Keeter, KEATAOTOR, say we have 30 wins, go to the Elite 8 as a minimum, which we did. We went further than that, and be a 1 or a 2 seed in the tournament. So he was right. We were a 1 seed in the tournament. Let's see, at M Arrington, that's Megan from last year or last week, not even last week, last podcast. There we go. We'll say that. At M Arrington 12, Megan. So we go 28-10, go to the Elite 8. So I just shared the Elite 8 part right, but we went much further than that. At Tar Heel Durham said we'd go 30-9 and be champions. He said 22-8 in the regular season, so he shorted us a couple of games there in the regular season, said we'd go 2-1 in the ACC tournament. Just like me, there was a little bit off. And then he said we'd go 6-0 in the NCAA. So shout out to Tar Heel Durham on Twitter. Said we'd be champions. At Future Tar Heel said we'd go 30-9, be second in the ACC. We were first in the ACC and go to the Final Four. Obviously, we were went farther than that. At T Brahman, that's TBROMMER, got it exactly right. He didn't say we were going to be champions, national champions, but he got our record exactly right, 33-7. Shout out for T Brahmer. At Lee Vasquez, said we'd go 31-8 and go to the Final Four. Again, showed us a little bit short, as I did as well, but had us going to the Final Four, pretty close on his record there. At Brandon Debris, 40, said we'd go 33-6 and be champs. So I guess that one extra loss would have said we would be, let's see, I guess it'd be regular season. We'd lose an extra one. Or I guess we'd play one less game in the regular season. No, not in the regular season, ACC tournament. But anyway, 33-6. Maybe he just didn't count out the games right. I don't know. But he did say we would be champs. So shout out to Brandon Debris 40 on Twitter. At news_Craig said we'd go 31-9 in the Final Four. Again, we went a little bit farther, but let's see. At DT Goulet, Goulet, said we'd have 4 losses, be ACC season and tournament champs. We were the regular season champs, not quite tournament champs. Go to the Final Four. We know what happened there. Let's see here. All right, I'm skipping over people that weren't right. All right, here we go. At Pusha_Ty said we'd be 34-4 and national champs. Obviously got that part right. At Steel Heel 40, 33-5 and national champs. Maybe counted the games wrong again, but did get that we would be national champs. At Dr. Good 13, DRGOOD 13 on Twitter, so it'd be 30-8 ACC and national champs, and that we'd win on a Justin Jackson 3. That part not quite, but good guess. We were national champs though, of course. At Patrick_Marks5, MARX5, so we go 29-8 and be national champs. Obviously got that part right. At Kouz, Kouz, and then 00 on Twitter, said we'd go 30-10, beating Duke in the national championship game and be national champs. A lot of people predicted that going into the tournament. Didn't happen that way, but we were national champions, and that's what really counts. At Keith_Hersey said we'd be 33-6. Again, I don't know if he counted the games right or not, but 33 wins, got that exactly right. Just one few too many losses there. Let's see, who else? All right, I don't know if I can say this word or this name, so I'm going to spell it. At SMIKULYUK, said we'd go 28-5 and be champs. Obviously, they got the champs part right. At They Call Me L, someone I talk with a lot on Twitter and other places, 32-7, so missed a win there. 32-7 would be national champs, and we were. Let's see here. At UNC Graphics, 34-6. Really close, one off, so I had to shout them out. But didn't say where we'd end up in the tournament, but very close on the record there. Let's see. At N Whitfield 88, 33-7 or 32-8, go to the Final Four. Got the again, gave himself that leeway there, but got it exactly right. 33-7, a little bit further than the Final Four. At Go Heel Athletics, 34-6 and be national champs. One off on the record, but got the national champs. At Dalton_Owenby, losing 9 and be national champs. We only lost 7, but we did win the national championship. At JMCMF Shane, 3 losses and be national champs. A little bit more than 3 losses, but again, we got that championship banner hanging up in the Smith Center now. Let's see. At N2 UNC, said 33-6, so one off again on the loss record, but otherwise record right on. Final Four if healthy. We weren't healthy, but we went further than the Final Four. And then that's it. All right, that's all we got for people that were right. There were more of you that submitted in. you were not correct, as I wasn't either. So don't take it too hard. But again, great season. Great season for the Tar Heels. Great predictions by a lot of Tar Heel fans. And yeah, I think I've pretty much covered everything I got. Like I said before, or as at the intro, we are going to monthly podcasts now. So I will be back sometime in May. I don't know when, so that's why it is important that you subscribe if you haven't already. Again, you can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, pretty much any podcast app, as well as YouTube to subscribe to. And as long as you get notifications on for that app or whatever, you can get notified when a new podcast is live. Or otherwise, you can put my notifications on for Twitter. I don't tweet a ton during the off season, so you can get a notification, and a lot of those will be when I'm posting a podcast, so that you don't miss anything coming up. But again, I want to thank you guys for great support throughout this season. So much fun covering the national championship Tar Heels this season, and it doesn't stop here. That's the great part about it. We go through this off season, we're right back into it. But yeah, I will be back next month with another podcast. We will look at recruiting, where it's coming. We'll take a look at NBA North Carolina players who's left in the playoffs, who we're going to be cheering for to get another NBA championship for a Tar Heel player, and yeah, eventually we'll get to who's coming back as well, so we can start forming out the 2017-18 roster for our Tar Heels. Again, thank you for supporting and listening to the podcast. If you haven't already ordered your championship gear, or if you're going to order more, or just any North Carolina gear that you're looking for, I have an affiliate link with fanatics.com. The link will be in the description, as well as any description to get a hold of me if you have comments, suggestions, or want to come on the podcast. Now that we're in the off season, got to do better about getting guests on the podcast here. And yeah, I'll be looking into getting some of you guys and some other people who covered the Tar Heel team back on the podcast to talk all things UNC hoops. So I've gone on long enough. Again, thanks for all your support. I love you guys. Until next time, go Heels.